Welcome, everyone, to the Four Tires and Fuel podcast. This is a podcast dedicated to taking you through the NASCAR race weekend from the eyes of the pit crew members, and we basically want to give everyone just an in-depth look of what it's like to be on pit road, the different guys that are on pit road, the backstories, how they got there. What we're looking for, what we see, stuff that goes on, interesting things, the race, everything like that. And so, I am your co-host. My name's Steven. I've been on pit road for about 6 years now, and I've pit for a bunch of different teams, cup level all the way down to truck and Xfinity and ARCA. I've been with Stuart Haas Racing, RFK Racing, and now I work with an independent team, pitting for Front Row Motorsports on the 38 truck, and I pit also on the 38 Xfinity car for Ryan C Racing.
Yeah, exactly like Steven said. I mean, I think there's several podcasts dedicated to talking about NASCAR from either a fan's or a driver's perspective, but nothing, to my knowledge, about talking about it from a pit crew perspective. And, we both have YouTube channels where we post our pit crew stops, and have kind of the idea for creating this podcast was from questions that we would get from fans or just people who saw our content and wanted to interact with it. So, we kind of felt like there was a void because a lot of people are interested in pit stops and what they look like on TV or at the track, but kind of the pit crew guys are, kind of behind the curtain, if you will, or, there's not a lot of coverage about us or about exactly what goes on in a pit stop, what equipment we use, how the tracks or strategy is different from week to week and how that affects us. So, I think we'll hope to answer all those questions and talk about our jobs and exactly what goes on a week-to-week basis and how that might be different from each track, for example. So, this is my third year on pit road. I met Steven actually at RFK Racing, where I had been for the last 2.5 years. We pitted on the 84 Legacy Jimmy Johnson Cup car together. That was our first big Cup experience together. But before that, we had also pitted on the truck and Xfinity side as well. This year, like Steven, I'm doing pit crews through an independent team, pitting the 45 truck for Nice Motorsports, and then the 35 Xfinity car for Joey Gase Racing. So that's a little bit about us and exactly what we're doing now. But Steven, both of us went to Kansas this weekend. How did we both pitted the ARCA race for different teams. I was on the 22 car, Venturini car, and Steven also pitted the ARCA race. So tell us a little bit about how your races went this weekend and what you thought going into it, and maybe was the plan the same or any changes happened on pit road that you weren't expecting?
Well, for the ARCA race, it was, they're non-competitive pit stops, which means basically that whatever position you come down pit road is the position you go back out onto the racetrack. Whether you're the first car off pit road, the last car off pit road, or anywhere in between, it doesn't matter. Wherever you enter pit road, whatever position you're in, that's where you leave pit road, or you line back up when you get out onto the racetrack. So with non-competitive pit stops, it was basically just, go out there, get it done, make sure everything's tight, make sure, no dumb penalties of like over the wall too soon or tire getting away or anything like that. You got plenty of time. So it was basically just a one-stop race. For us, at least, we came down at around the midway point and just put 4 tires on it and filled it up with fuel. And really the only thing exciting that happened for me there was I caught the first can from the fueler because you're not allowed to fuel and change tires at the same time. So that was pretty much it.
Yeah, that's one difference between ARCA and the rest of the NASCAR series. So in ARCA, on tracks that are 1.5 miles and above, what Steven was saying, I think they call it modified live pit stops. Basically, you just have to beat the pace car out, which ends up being like 1.5 minutes or something like that to do these adjustments and stuff. But because of that, you can't fuel the car and change tires at the same time. So I don't know exactly what you did, but what we did, as soon as the car got in the box, we jumped over and changed 4 tires. We did that, I would say, in like 20 seconds. And after that, we had our fueler go over and fill it up as much as he could, because it was a 100 lap race. And honestly, as it happened, we ran out of fuel as we crossed the finish line. So we had a fueler who was like this is like first real year. He did a few races last year, but as a jack man, and this year he's jacking. This is his first race he's fueled. So
he hit it right on the money then.
Yeah, I know, exactly. That's what he was saying. So I don't know exactly what happened, but literally as we were coming to across the checkered flag, our driver said she lost fuel pressure, and that was it. They had to tow it back to the garage or give it a push back. But yeah, I mean, one thing that's interesting about the ARCA stops is, like, with so much time that you can really, the teams can do more adjustments than they could in a truck or Xfinity or Cup race, just because as long as you beat the pace car out, you're not losing any positions to cars. So I think every ARCA race this year, we've done some form of tape on the grill to either add tape to make the engine run a little bit warmer and at its optimum temperature. At Dover in Kansas, the temperature was a little bit colder than I think the crew chiefs were expecting. Like, I think on the weather app, at least for Kansas, it said it might be up in the 70s or low 80s for the ARCA race, but it was a lot colder than that. So I know we had
a breeze going too, so I was happy about that.
Yeah, I know. We had to add tape because our engine was running, like, our oil temperature was like 185 or 190, which ideally you have it at least at like 200 or 210, 215, something like that. So
yeah, exactly.
So we had to add tape, and we did a couple rounds in on the track bar, which for those who don't know, the track bar is an adjustment that you can make in the back of the car by using a wrench, and essentially the track bar manipulates. Well, Steven could probably explain it a little bit better than me, but it manipulates the handling of the car. So we were a little bit loose, and so we made some track bar adjustments.
Yeah, the track bar basically is just like, it connects the right side of the car to the left side, and you can move it up and down to try and, like John said, affect the handling of the car. And if you bring it down, that's gonna I want to say, was it free the car up or make it loose, and then if you bring it up, it's gonna make it tight. I might have that backwards, I don't know, but it's one of those two, something like that. But but all it does is it just connects the left side to the right side to help turn the rear end of the car more or less, basically. So.
Yeah, no, and as you can kind of tell, so NASCAR is one of the few, if not the only, motorsports where kind of the pit crew guys are separate from the mechanics and the engineers. So, we've also done IMSA races before, and for the majority of IMSA cars, or Formula One or whatever it is, the engineers and the mechanics who build the cars during the week are the ones who perform the pit stops. But in NASCAR, it's a separate group of people who just practice pit stops, and the mechanics are there during the weekend, but their only responsibility is to build the car. So we don't have to know a ton about the car in order to pit it. It's important to know, to have a general idea of like how your car works, and in the front, looking at like suspension and front end parts and stuff like that. But like, we really don't need to know a lot about the technical aspects of the car.
No, I mean, there's some guys out there that like they don't know where the axles are located, or the tie rods, or the control arms, or anything like that. All they know is just, I put the tires on the car, and and that's not an issue. It's just, if you know all that stuff, it can kind of help you on like a damage stop, or if something gets messed up or anything like that, you can know where to look and where to check out. But
Yeah.
But yeah, so the ARCA race was pretty cool. It wasn't, it was very straight up. It was only had like one or two cautions in it for a couple cars spinning out or hitting the wall or something. But how'd you guys do in the truck race? What truck were you on? You said you were on 45.
Yeah, 45 truck driven by Caden Honeycutt. So we did not qualify very well. We started 22nd. But like, Caden had just blew through the field from the get-go. Like, I think already by like 4 or 5, he was already up like at least to 15th, if not fighting for a top 10 spot. So, Caden has proven that he's been an amazing driver for us this year. So kind of how they describe it for the 45 truck is like a all-star truck for Nice. So we don't have one full-time driver, but a rotating mix of Johnny Sauter, who is a former Truck Series champion, Ross Chastain, who's a full-time driver in the number 1 car for Trackhouse Racing in the Cup Series, and then Caden Honeycutt. Caden just blew through the field. So by the time we got to our first pit stop, I think it was lap 33, we came down 5th, which was impressive. Like I said, we were past, at least 15 cars on the track. And so, we came down, and he was really happy with the truck. I know earlier they had run it through the simulator a lot, and he knew that was kind of the setup that he liked. So we just did a small air pressure adjustment, and we're able to do a stop, what we call in the business 4 tires straight up, which means no adjustments, just changing 4 tires and putting fuel in it. So we came down and did a really, really nice stop. Kind of the measure on how, for a changer, how fast the stop is their lug nut accuracy. So there's 5 lug nuts on each side, and I'm responsible as a front changer for changing the front 2 tires. And so 20 lug nuts total, 5 off, 5 on each side. And first stop came down and went 20 for 20, which is as good as you can do. And I think total our stop was right at 16 seconds, or maybe a 16.2 or 3. But that first cycle, we were like the 3rd fastest pit stop on pit road, according to the data that we've gotten. So we ended up going from 5th place to 2nd place and got Caden out on the front row, which everybody was really excited for. So that was kind of our first stop. But you down there, further down on pit road, you had some exciting, well, I don't want to say exciting, but definitely something out of the ordinary that happened that first stop.
Yeah, we didn't qualify very well either. We were 25th, and the truck just wasn't handling right. Yeah, I think he said it was too loose the whole run, and we came in. We only got up to like 22nd the whole first stage, and so when the caution came out, we came down, and we're in the middle of changing right side tires, and out of the corner of my eye, I can see a truck like come into my field of view, and I'm like, that's not good.
Yeah.
So I finish hitting the right rear, and I get up and I look, and there's a guy laying on the ground, and then there's a guy walking over to him, and I kind of just ran by him and just like was like, okay, I got to finish the stop. And I finished the pit stop, and then when Lane took off out of the box, there was a pit gun sitting underneath the truck. And so I walked over, I grabbed the gun, and I gave it back to him. And what happened is the guys behind us, he overshot his box, and he actually ended up hitting the front tire changer.
Yeah.
And he basically crawled his way back to the pit wall, and they talked to him. The medical staff came over. That I want to say it was the AMR safety team.
Yeah.
And they came over and they got him back on the behind the wall and checked him out. And they actually ended up taking him to the infield care center. And I did end up talking to him towards the end of the race, and he said he was okay. He said that it really wasn't like when he got hit by the truck, it wasn't that really like hurt. It was whenever he landed on the ground, because he landed on his tailbone. So he said his back was hurting.
Yeah.
So they took him to the infield care center, and they didn't have anybody to change their front tires. So I actually volunteered to jump over there and change the front tires for them for their pit stop. They kind of just like, he went back out onto the track and came back around and pit the second time that pit road was open. And I jumped over the wall for them to try and just help them out with their pit stop, because they had a really bad situation.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that's kind of the thing that I think people don't necessarily understand. Like, there's, 40 different pit crews more or less on a weekend. And, of course, it's all kind of like a competition. We all want to do as good as we can. But at the end of the day, it's like, I'm friends, or at least know or friendly with the majority of the guys. Like, you end up seeing these guys every week, 40 weeks out of the year, and you see them year in and year out. And, guys who would even be considered on like rival teams for our standards, I don't consider the guys on that crew rivals, more so just, competitors, or guys doing the same thing as me, trying to do it as best as they can and make a living for themselves. So, I think for the most part, the guys on pit road, we all have a pretty good relationship with each other, and all understand, that, it's, of course, like I said, we all are competitive by nature, but at the end of the day, it's about, at the end of the day, we all have a good relationship with each other. And so Brandon Henry, the guy who ended up getting hit, I know I'm in a group chat with him, and guys from several other of the teams, and he was saying that he's okay now. He went to the doctor and ended up getting checked out, and might have a few things wrong with his back, but overall I think he's okay. But that's awesome that you were able to jump in there and help him out.
Yeah, it's a really bad situation. So it's one of those things that's like, they're struggling to put two and two together on what actually happened. And, I was kind of just, I was there and I still had all my gear on. So I was like, okay, I can help you out. I don't have an issue doing that. Like, it's one of those things that's like, that happened and it sucks. And it's kind of eye opening too, to realize that, like, that's the kind of stuff that we do week after week.
Yeah.
19, 20, 36 weeks a year, and we just don't even think about it. And then whenever something like that happens, it's kind of like, whoa, like, this is what we do every week. And like, and like, it's one of those things that's like, oh, okay, it was my fault. I was too close to the truck or car or whatever. Right. But like, when you get hit from like a driver, like, missing the pit stall, like, I've never had that happen, and I hope I never have that happen, because
I agree, man. I mean, it could have been really dangerous for you if you ended up to be like running around the truck right when that happened, because it looked like he basically hit your truck.
I thought he was going to. I really thought that, like, when I saw it out of the corner of my eye, I thought he was going to hit the truck and knock it off the jack, and it would have been a bad day for both teams at that point.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, it sounded like you guys had a lot of adjustments on your truck. Like, sounded like it wasn't quite as good of a day as you thought it would have been setup wise, and Lane Riggs sounded like he wasn't as happy as he could have been with the truck.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Lane before the race, and he kind of was like, he didn't have that like confidence that he normally has, and so I was like, man, I just hope he can find it somewhere. We can help him on pit road or whatnot. And, The first pit stop, we gained a couple spots. I think we came out like 18, but like the truck was just so loose that we ended up making a major adjustment, which was we on the second pit stop we pulled two spring rubbers out of the right rear, and it slowed the stop down. Like we lost all of our track position. I think we came in like 18th and we left like 27th or something like that.
Can you explain what spring rubbers do and why that is considered a major adjustment?
So something that takes a lot of time and helps the truck, but it helps the truck or car tremendously is like a major adjustment. So basically you have your spring, and inside the coils of each spring you can set a piece of rubber, and it's super thick, and it usually has like a tab on it that you can pull, and they set them inside the coils of the spring, and basically I had to pull two of them out. So I had to reach up in there. I had to take the tire off on the right side, reach in, grab the two spring rubbers out, and it does take some time to get them out. And then the carrier could put the tire on, and we could carry on with the pit stop and finish it. But it's like it's one of those things that like it affects how much the spring compresses and decompresses, and like how much travel that right side is going to have in this instance, because it was on the right rear. It's how much travel that right side's going to have, and how fast that spring can compress up and down.
Yeah,
it helps the truck a lot, because after that he said he was getting tight, but it was just one of those things that like we were 18, and then we lost all of our track position trying to do that adjustment. So
yeah,
it's kind of one of those things that's like, the crew chief talks about it on the radio, and you're like, okay, I know that this is what we're doing, so we need to just make sure that we get all the lug nuts tight, we do all the things right, our fundamentals are good, and we get the adjustment, because the main thing is to get the adjustment.
Right. Yeah, at that point, like that's something that the crew chief has to weigh in their mind. It's like, right, like we're going to take a big swing at it. Basically, we're going to try and change the truck as realistically as much as we can during a stop. And so he's forfeiting track position at that point, because just realistically, if there's one pit crew that's just changing tires or maybe doing a small wrench adjustment with a track bar or wedge, which we can get into later, those are considered minor adjustments, right? Like wedge or track bar adjustments that you do with just a wrench. It might slow the stop down by a half a second or a second, depending on how many you do, or like adding tape or something like that. But big suspension adjustments like spring rubbers are in the front packers, which you can put in and out of the front suspension to either increase or decrease the travel of the front suspension. Those are major adjustments, and normally they lose you multiple spots on pit road. And you only really try and do those if the truck is really not set up the way that the driver wants it at all. So, that's something that the crew chief takes into account. It's like every adjustment that he has the pit crew do, whether it is just a small adjustment with the track bar or wedge, like it has the ability to slow down and track position on pit road. The hopes is that you gain it back by having a really fast truck when it's back on track. So that's something that the crew chief weighs. And I know our crew chief, Phil Gould, really tries to do adjustments, as a last resort, and really, take care of it on anything he can do on his end by changing air pressures or something. So, so kind of that was kind of how our race went. We had actually 3 stops, no adjustments on any of them, all straight up.
Must be nice.
Yeah, I know. The way that our truck was set up, though, we did have the right front that was hanging over the tire, and that was a problem for us a little bit. Probably slowed the stop down a second each stop, but we gained or maintained on the first 2 stops, and then I had a little bit of an issue on the left front on the last stop, and we ended up coming down second and leaving pit road third on a green flag stop, and then ultimately getting passed on track. And we finished 4th, but that was a really good. I felt like on pit road it was a great day for us, especially those first 2 stops. And then, like a finish of fourth was something that was really good for our team. So we were really happy with the way that Kansas went. So.
Yeah, well, that's great. That's great for you guys to get out there with a part-time driver and be able to still lay it down to all those big teams that, have the same driver week in and week out. Because
Right.
when you have different drivers like you, like it's going to change the way that you can read the car because it's not the same person driving in the box every time.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. One last thing I want to hit on, and then we'll move on to Darlington. But, talking about Brandon Henry getting hit, it was really surprising that he did because Kansas, as pit roads go, like it's super straight. The boxes are pretty big. And like the visibility on pit road is, I would say about as good as it can get. Like it's long and straight, and there's nothing really obstructing the view of the driver or the pit crew. So, each track, like Darlington this week, is a little bit more challenging. I feel like the boxes are a little bit smaller. But yeah, Kansas, I would say, is generally, like, as pit road go, one of the easier tracks to pit on.
Yeah, I mean, it's got a little curve to it with the front stretch, but it's not that bad. Like you said, visibility is still great. You can still see all the way down from start to finish of the pit road. Like that, it was shocking that was the track that somebody ended up getting hit on.
Right.
But as far as like the Cup side goes, because the Cup race was also there, and I have to say it was probably one of the best Cup races this year. They've really been on the upswing as far as mile and a half are concerned.
Yeah.
But a few interesting things that I noticed from the Cup race when I was watching it, because I wasn't actually there pitting it, but I was watching it on television. And the beginning of stage or the end of stage one, they had pit stops, and Denny Hamlin ended up getting blocked in.
Uh-huh.
And it's one of those things that's like he came in as the leader, and he lost like 2.5, 3 seconds from getting blocked in because he didn't want to hit the tire carrier on the 33 of Austin Hill's car.
Right.
Which I think is good because that means he's looking out for the crew members, because he could have easily just peeled out of the box and just said, well, the hell with who's in front of me. And, next thing you know, the guy's going for a ride on the roof.
Yeah.
But I appreciated him not running over the crew member.
Yeah.
But at his own expense.
Right. Exactly.
And that's one of again, going back to the Brandon Henry thing, that's one of those things that just shows how dangerous it can be on pit road.
Yeah.
And it's stuff that we don't even think about like, being hit or almost hit, or how close these cars really are to coming in contact with us because we chose to play in traffic as a living.
Exactly. Well, a lot of people think that like jackman, tire carrier, front changer, like those are the most dangerous positions because we're the ones jumping out in front of the car. But honestly, like as a rear changer, you have just as much danger, if not more, because what happens is, say you get done with the right side stop just as the car behind you is leaving the box. Like I've had a few really, really close calls where you're running in the same direction as the car and they just barely miss you, and sometimes you end up getting hit. So that's, for me, that's always something. And sometimes you're getting up and you're not even looking at it, and stuff can happen. At least if I'm in the front, like I can see in front of me, I can see the car, my car, and I'll know, oh shoot, like if he is going, I have a second to react. But sometimes if you're looking at the lug nuts and you get hit, or you just got up and something happens, like it can really blindside you as a rear changer.
Yeah, no, I've had a couple of close calls, but nothing that's ever been like, it makes the old butt pucker a little bit, but that's about it.
Well, one thing I want to bring up from the Cup race is the 17 pit crew, their first pit stop, they did like an 8.69 stop, which is like by Cup standards, really, really fast, especially at the track. Like one of the fastest stops this year. I think for sure their fastest stop this year. And they put Chris Buescher in like a really, really good spot to compete for a stage win or win later on in the race. But right after that, they had a penalty for a man over the wall too soon. And we kind of talk in football, like they talk about drive killers penalties, right? Like maybe it's third down or something like that, and you move the chains, and then it gets called back for a holding or something like that, and then it's like 3rd and 20, and it's like, well, that just killed the drive. NASCAR kind of has the same thing like that. So if you have a penalty, the rule is you can't be in your box until your car is hits the one stall in front of you. So, and if you do that, you get a penalty for being over the wall too soon as a front changer or a jack man. They normally give the tire carrier a little bit of leeway, but the penalty for that on a caution flag is to go all the way to the rear of the field. So say you come down first or second, if you touch the ground a millisecond before the car's front nose touches the jump line, the pit box in front of you, like that 1 millisecond or half a second cost you, 37 spots of track position, so.
Yeah, well, they used to have where it was like a guy up there that would watch like replays of all the pit stops to make sure that everybody was good. Now they got those cameras, so like you never get away with anything anymore, especially down there. They use those cameras to see all kinds of stuff. But yeah, I mean, with the front changer jumping over early, that was really like you said, it was almost like a drive killer, like a false start on a second down or a third down or something like that. Like it kills the whole team morale when something like that happens, because it's so preventable, but you're so in the moment and just ready to go that you just had one little lapse in judgment, thinking he was going to be there and he wasn't there. And so it definitely hurt them, but they weren't the only ones that had issues on pit road, because the 5 of Kyle Larson, I think it was the second stage under the green flag pit stops, they actually dropped the jack with the left front tire not tight, and thankfully they caught it and they jacked it back up, and he took the lug nut off and tightened it back up and then sent him out. But it definitely could have been one of those things where, like what happened a couple weeks ago in Texas, where they had the wheel come off, and then next thing you know, you got 2 guys suspended for 2 weeks because they had a wheel coming off on the racetrack. And I mean, you want to talk about a drive killer? That ruins the whole race.
Yeah.
Whereas they only lost about 2 or 3 or 4 seconds to just jack it back up, tighten the wheel, send him back out on the track.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, he lost the lead, but he was still able to go in the race.
Yeah. Yeah. So, kind of talking about what Steven said, like if on the single lug side, which is the Cup Series, if a wheel comes off on the racetrack because it didn't get tightened all the way, the changer and who's responsible for it and the jackman are both suspended for 2 weeks, which is huge, especially if those are your guys who have been with you all year. So, the margins are so close now on the Cup side, especially between the top, I would say 10 to 15, 20 crews, and, you're cutting everything razor thin. And so what a lot of these jackmen will do is they'll jack the car up on the left side, and then they're putting the tire on the left rear and basically listening to hear if there's, the lug nut tighten on the left front. But as soon as they hang the left front rear and see their rear changer tighten the lug nut, they're running back to the jack and cutting it. As you call it a check off. Sometimes you'll have jackmen look and make sure everything's tight, and then they'll jack it. Then they'll cut the jack. And there's some cases, like it happened to Kyle Busch at Daytona this year, like they're going so fast, you hang that left rear, you see them tighten, and you just run and cut the jack. And that's where mistakes like that can happen, especially on the left side, because the driver is taught to go as soon as the jack gets cut, and something's not tight, especially with the single lug, like you only have one chance to get it tight, and that doesn't happen. It's a big mistake, big penalty, big price to pay for a tenth of a second, so.
Yeah, but thankfully both of those guys were able to recover from those pit road mistakes, and they actually ended up finishing 1-2 in the race in what was the closest finish in NASCAR history. It was awesome to watch. It was fantastic to be in that moment. And now we move on to Darlington. So what is Darlington going to bring for us this weekend?
So for me and you as tire changers, right? Like each track on the NASCAR schedule is a little bit different. Some tracks don't have any tire wear really, and so it's all about fuel mileage for the most part. Or some tracks, for example, short tracks mainly, you might only do like a right side 2-tire stop or something like that. But Darlington is probably the most notorious track for tire wear, tire degradation on the entire circuit. If possible, teams will come down and get 4 tires anytime that they can. I mean, even say there's a late race caution with like 10 laps left, teams are almost all going to come down and get tires just because, there's up to like a second and a half lap time difference in used tires versus brand new tires. And Darlington just tears up tires. So this week is all about pit stops. There's going to be a lot of them. For a truck and Xfinity race, truck race, maybe 2 to 3 stops is normal, and Xfinity race probably 3 or 4. But Darlington, I think we'll probably do at least 4, maybe even 5 stops. And I know the Cup Series guys for the race in September, but the Southern 500, like they'll have 14 sets of tires laying, and they'll do a pit stop as much as they can. So as changers, this race is really on us, and being as fast as we can, as clean as we can, because they'll be coming down a lot. And late race situation, if you get a late caution, you might be coming down and have to really bust out a quick stop to keep, track position with only a few laps left to go. So that's how I kind of view it this weekend.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat. I mean, anytime somebody talks about Darlington, they know they're going to do a lot of pit stops, probably a lot of adjustments. In the truck race, it's going to be at night, so you got to make sure that the track's going to change from practice and qualifying to the race, so that you got to be ready for all that. And then for the Xfinity race, it's a middle of the day race, but the track is still going to change a lot, and It just depends a lot on cloud cover, weather, whatnot.
Yeah.
And so, like you were saying, I think we always get the most sets of tires at Darlington. Normally, like you said, it was 2 or 3. Here we're going to have like 5 or 6 sets of tires, just because they know how bad that it is on tires. So it's going to be one of those things that us as the pit crew is going to come into play a lot. There's a lot of chances to make mistakes. There's a lot of chances to gain a lot of spots and show that you can do this for the long haul. But it's also a chance where you could definitely make a mistake and take your team out of contention very fast.
Yeah, and Darlington is such a uniquely shaped track. Like turn 1 and 2 are really narrow, and the way that they drive 1 and 2 and the way the track is set up, like turns 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 are completely different. So, in some sense, I kind of think of Darlington a little bit as kind of like a road course setup. Like maybe you might make an adjustment to help your turn in turn 1 or 2, but it's going to negatively impact your turns 3 and 4, kind of like a road course. Like, hey, I'm really loose on this left-hand turn. Okay. You make an adjustment on that to help the left-hand turn, but the right-hand turn is going to hurt it, So Darlington, you're going to be doing a lot of adjustments. And another thing, the way they run the track coming out of the last two turns there, they're running it right up against the wall. And they call it the Darlington stripe for a reason. A lot of drivers will tag that wall and get right side damage. So you always got to be ready. Like it might not be major damage, but it might be a tire rub, or it might impact getting the tires on and off the car on the right side. So that's always something unique at Darlington is looking for that right side damage. Like I said, if it's not major, it's just pesky enough to cause a problem, getting tires in and out on the right side. So
yeah, and it's always in your head too that like he said with the Darlington stripe, it's always he might hit the wall. It might not be that bad. It might just be a little straight, but the crew chief will tell you, hey, make sure the fenders are clear. So you take that extra second to make sure that the fenders are clear of the tire and not rubbing anything. But as far as pit road is concerned, how is it? Like, what's your biggest, what's your biggest hindrance on this pit road?
So I haven't gotten pit boxes released yet. So normally each week NASCAR will release like what pit stall we're in for the race. For me, Darlington, honestly, I would prefer to have a stall that's a little bit further down on pit road because they're coming around a curve coming into pit road. And the more time that I get to see the truck or the car coming down, the better I can be. The boxes are a little bit smaller than Kansas, so things are a little bit tighter. I don't know if now there's the island, right? Is that what they call it at Darlington?
I think that's what I was referring to. Is I think that's what it's called, is the island.
So there's a set of like 5 or 6 pit boxes that are right towards the start of Darlington, like the pit road right off of turn 4, and they're like kind of way out at there. They're kind of separated from everybody else a little bit, and generally that is not a good spot to be at. But my first ever Darlington race, I was there. So that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that I've never actually like been on those or in those pit stalls, but I've heard very bad things about them. There's also like the way that the drivers have to come into pit road. Like if you ever have to do a green flag stop, it's basically like they have all the way up until they get to the front stretch before they have to really think about committing to pit road because it's just so open and there's no grass down there, there's no nothing. So they could be coming down the backstretch or even through 3 and 4 and be like, hey, we're going to pit this time. And he still has all that time to get down there and pit. So you got to be ready for that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, another thing is like in Darlington, especially in turns like 1 or 2, you're using the brake a little bit to get into the corner. And especially if you have depending on how the truck's set up, right? But I don't drive iRacing, but am I right in saying you use a little bit of brake getting into turn 1 or 2? Or is it mainly coast or what?
In the trucks, yes. When I play iRacing, I use a little bit of brake to just kind of set the nose and point it where I want it to go. And then it's a little bit in 3 and 4, but it's not a lot. But yeah. It can definitely heat up them front brake rotors.
For sure. So that's one thing you have to consider is like on short tracks. Darlington, I wouldn't consider a short track, but any track that you are using your brake, like lap in and lap out, especially under green flag, what ends up happening as a front changer, generally the fronts are worse than the rears because the brake bias is heavier in the fronts. But you can get a lot of brake dust, which basically makes it really, really hard to see the lug nuts, and they get really hot and really tight. So the hotter they get, more the metal expands even just a little bit, and it can really make them hard to come to take the lug nuts off. So that's something to consider. Like, didn't have to really do that at Kansas, just the way the track is. Like, you can coast through the corners and just lift, and not using a ton of brake. But at Darlington, that's something to consider for sure. Is if you do have a green flag stop, or even after a long run and a caution coming down, like that's still something you're going to have to deal with, especially as a front changer. So.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of, like you were saying about the heat, it makes the wheels super hot.
It does.
So that I know when I was a front changer for a little bit in the beginning of my career, I hated when we went to short tracks, Bristol, Martinsville, Darlington, stuff like that, where it has a lot of brake heat because I always ended up burning the crap out of my fingers, and I hate that.
Yeah. Now, luckily, they make you nowadays wear these SFI fireproof gloves, which I actually turned to last year.
You gotta wear them.
Yeah, exactly. They've made a big deal about that this year, but I just turned to wearing them all last year because I prefer to be consistent. And even in the fronts, like surprisingly, tracks at like Daytona Daytona Talladega, stuff like that. Even you could still get hot brakes.
Mhm.
They were coming off a green flag run or just hitting the brake really hard, coming from 180 down to 60 miles an hour. So I just like wearing them, the same glove the whole time. But I have a burn on my arm right now from when I was in Texas, even a track where you're not using a ton of brake, but green flag stop, I reached in and burnt me right through the opening, and there was a little bit of a gap between my fire suit and the glove, and it got me. And yeah, it does not feel good, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So I've actually taken a tire gun, a heat gun to those brakes before. I did it at the Clash when I was with the NASCAR Mexico Series, and I did it in a modified car at Martinsville. And I've had 2 times where the gun went up to like 999 degrees Fahrenheit, and it it was more than that. It like was out registered the gun. So those rotors can get really, really hot. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's what I worry about as far as like you guys up front. Like me in the rear, I kind of just do my normal thing. But I mean, that's pretty much it in a nutshell. Though is Darlington just a lot of pit stops. Watch out for brake heat. Just be ready for all the adjustments, pulling fenders, stuff like that. And yeah, I mean that's pretty much a straight up Darlington race. If you make it through, then I guess the lady in black didn't get you.
Yeah, I mean, if you have good pit stops, you definitely have pit stops this race, and pit crews are going to have a bigger advantage than they normally do, even at a track where you're doing like 3. I mean, most tracks, pit stops do matter, most intermediates and short tracks, but like you might only be doing 2 or 3 compared to maybe 4 or 5 this week. So there's more opportunities to make an impact. And yeah, so looking forward to it. We have Ross Chastain in the truck this week. It should be good. Good for us. I mean, I hope we'll have a good run. We had a top 5 with him this year in the one race he ran for us at COTA, Circuit of the Americas. And yeah, I mean, I think we'll have a fast truck and definitely compete for a win or at least the top 5. So
who do you got the Xfinity car this week?
I don't know. It's listed as TBA on the Bob Pockris. He released the entry list, so I don't know. I saw
that guy gets so many opportunities. I hope he finds a ride soon.
Yeah, yeah, we started the season with Frankie Muniz driving for us. He drove at Daytona and Phoenix. And for those of you who don't know, he was the actor who played Malcolm in Malcolm in the Middle. He's ran a full ARCA season last year and is doing a few Xfinity races. I don't know exactly how many more he's going to do. But I hope some more. Honestly, I mean, it brought a lot of publicity to the team. He was a really nice guy, and I enjoyed pitting for him. So, I mean, yeah, the car that we're in, the 35, like it's a good opportunity to get a driver some experience, So, yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see who we have this week. So. Yeah, we had some bad luck at the last Xfinity race in Dover. We crashed out like 5 laps into the race, so that was our day done.
Yeah,
day done early. So, but anyways, is there anything else you think you wanna? Any parting thoughts?
No, I mean, I hope to see a lot of people there. I hope to interact with the fans. I know it's always fun to talk to them, especially when we're gluing up tires and they're always asking us questions about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I hope to see some people there and mingle with them and show them what it's like for us to be down on pit road and yeah, hopefully we bang off some good stops. I'll be doing Lane Riggs' truck this weekend again and hitting the old 38 of Matty D.
Right. That's right. Yeah.
Well, full time. Hey, we're going full time.
There we go. I saw that. Yeah, that's awesome for you guys. But yeah, so for us, we're planning on doing this podcast every week. Generally, it'll be Sunday nights after the Cup race. But if something happens or it's a late night, and Cup doesn't get done till late, we'll push it to Monday, but that's the plan, to do it once a week, and we'll kind of, debrief the race that we just got done with and preview the upcoming track. But also, we'd like to, have questions from you guys. If there's anything, we'd love to answer some of those, and also do some more explaining type stuff, talking exactly about maybe what equipment we use, showing video of our stops, stuff like that. So definitely going to be looking for some more input coming up soon, and would love to hear if there's anything specific that you guys want to hear about or hear an answer to, and we'll be happy to talk about it.
Yeah, I definitely look forward to seeing all the feedback on this one, and seeing what people say, and seeing all the interaction that people give us for directions we can take the podcast and information that we can give them.
Yeah, this is our first one. So I mean, we're working out the kinks a little bit, but after that, I hope that we'll kind of get into a rhythm and get better at it each week, and be able to do more stuff as we kind of get used to the software and everything, and hopefully really turn this into something that a lot of people enjoy. And I know we enjoy doing that at the very least. So that's we used to be on the same team for the last 2 years. We were used to seeing each other every day, and now we really get to see each other like once or twice a week, so it's good to do this on the side to do that. So yeah.
Yep. Well, I look forward to seeing you there, man. Hopefully you guys have to lay down some heaters like you did in Kansas, and we'll try to keep up with you.
Yeah, we'll see how we do. You say that now. We'll see how we do. Cool. Well, thanks for everybody. Thanks for tuning in. We'll have this up, and feel free to comment or ask questions. And like I said earlier, we'll do what we can. We'll answer, and we'll make this a weekly thing. So we're really excited about it going forward.
Yep. And that's pretty much it. So we'll catch you guys at Darlington, and we'll see you guys next week when we debrief Darlington and preview whatever race comes next.
North Wilkesboro.
Oh, it's North Wilkesboro.
It is. Yep, that's going to be interesting, because I don't know how that race is going to go. They resurfaced it. It's fast, like 2.5 seconds faster, but I don't know what tire wear is going to be like. So we'll see. It's going to be
we'll figure it all out, and we'll let you guys know, keep you all informed.
Yep, no doubt.
But yeah, we'll catch you guys in the next one.